Do you think danger only happens to others? Think again. Each of these stories began with an ordinary day until, in seconds, everything turned into a nightmare scenario. No warning, no second chance. Just the silence that follows the impact. These real cases show how fascinating and fatal speed can be. Like now, subscribe, and comment if you would have the courage to face a road like this. Because what comes next isn't for everyone. Have you ever stopped to think that the worst tragedies almost never begin with something big, but with a tiny decision? Oh, I don't need a helmet today. Just this once, I'll speed up a little more. It's in that second of confidence that fate finds the perfect opening. Because danger doesn't warn you, it waits for the moment when you think you're in control. What few people realize is that most accidents that shock the world don't involve mechanical failures, rain, or bad luck. They involve ego, a simple impulse to prove something to oneself. These are real stories recorded on camera, recounted by rescue workers, and they reveal an uncomfortable truth. It's not the road that's dangerous. It's the people who underestimate how far it will take its toll. And the scariest part is that none of them heeded the warning before the impact. Every curve seemed harmless. Every acceleration seemed like pure fun. But in an instant, what was freedom turned into tragedy. And the first of these stories began on such a beautiful day that it seemed impossible for things to go wrong. Until they did. Did you know that more than 80% of fatal motorcycle accidents involve the absence of protective equipment? That number alone is frightening. But nothing compares to what happened on a deserted road in Turkey in the middle of summer 2021. A young man, completely in love with his motorcycle, decided that sunny day would be perfect for a ride. And it was precisely in that innocent decision that the worst began to unfold. The heat was intense, and he felt that comfort was more important than safety. He traded his jacket, gloves, and boots for a light t-shirt, but kept his helmet on, believing that was enough. When he got on the sports bike, he felt the engine vibrate and the wind cut across his face. The sensation was one of pure freedom. But a few kilometers later, that same freedom would transform into the most violent and irreversible moment of his life. The straight stretched ahead, and the feeling of power was addictive. He pressed the accelerator, reaching a speed most people would never dare attempt. And it was at this insane pace that a curve appeared out of nowhere. No time to react, no chance of control. In a single second, everything that seemed like fun shattered into silence and twisted metal. Witnesses who passed by later described an unbelievable scene, a brutal reminder of how small decisions can have immense consequences. The sun was still shining, but the day had ended in the worst possible way. And what's most disturbing is that, at that very moment, thousands of kilometers away, another motorcyclist was about to experience something equally devastating, only under the cold light of a street lamp in the early morning. It was shortly after midnight when the city of Phuket seemed to have stopped in time. The streets were empty, the air heavy, and the silence broken only by a distant rumble, the sound of a motorcycle speeding too fast for that hour. A young man on a red and black Honda Forza glided through the deserted avenues as if the world belonged to him. Perhaps he was trying to distract himself, or perhaps he just wanted to feel that kind of freedom that comes with danger. The speedometer was exceeding its limits, and at every turn, the reflection of the headlight danced on the walls as if foretelling something bad. The city slept, but he seemed too awake, driven by an impulse that needed no explanation. Suddenly, everything changed. A small slip, a fraction of a second lost, and control was gone. The motorcycle collided with a power pole with such force that the calm dawn transformed into a scene of pure chaos. The impact was so intense that the police would have difficulty describing the scene afterward. No camera captured the exact moment, but the remnants spoke for themselves. This was no simple accident. It was a collision so violent that it defied explanation. In seconds, silence returned, but not the same silence as before. It was the hollow sound of absence, the kind that weighs on the air. The local newspapers never published his name. Only the fact that he was a foreigner, just another statistic on a road that doesn't forgive mistakes. And while the authorities tried to understand what had happened, life went on in another corner of the planet. In Brazil, a new tragedy was brewing, and it would be so bizarre and unbelievable that the world would struggle to believe it was real. Would you believe it if someone said that a simple motorcycle fall could completely transform a person's face? It sounds like an exaggeration, but that's exactly what happened in Manakapuru, a small town on the banks of the Solimois River. On an ordinary afternoon, two motorcyclists crossed paths in traffic and, in fractions of a second, one of them was thrown to the ground so violently that the accident went viral around the world. The impact caused his head to hit directly on the asphalt, and that's when the most important detail was revealed. He wasn't wearing a helmet. The shock was so intense that it ripped all the skin off his scalp, leaving only the bone exposed. A scene so bizarre that many thought it was staged, but it wasn't. Doctors call this type of trauma degloving. This is when the skin is literally ripped off as if it were a glove. And, shockingly, it's more common than you might think. The man was rushed to the hospital and survived, but with a scar that no surgeon could completely erase. The medical photos, which circulated among groups and forums of curious onlookers, became a symbol of a type of accident as brutal as it was instructive. A reminder that the lack of a simple accessory can change everything. A decision and a piece of one's own identity, lost in that same instant. And while the Brazilian case was still causing astonishment on the internet, a new episode was preparing to erase any idea of a common accident. Because on the other side of the map, a collision between a motorcycle and a truck was about to transform the California night into a true hell on wheels. Have you ever imagined seeing an entire highway lit up in flames, as if the asphalt had come to life? That's what drivers witnessed on an ordinary night on the 15 freeway in California. A motorcyclist collided with a fuel truck, and in a matter of seconds, what was just another accident turned into one of the largest highway fires in the region. The impact was so violent that the truck's tank ruptured, spilling diesel all over the road. The sparks generated by the collision between metal and asphalt did the rest. The fire engulfed everything: the motorcycle, the truck, and the driver himself, trapped under the wreckage with no chance of escape. The scene looked like something out of an action movie, but nobody there was acting. 3 fire trucks took hours to contain the flames, and even then, all that remained was a trail of ashes and silence. The incident made headlines, but soon faded into oblivion, like almost all inevitable tragedies. And if you think nothing could be more grotesque than a fire like that, the next case will make you rethink what an unbelievable accident really means. Can you imagine being launched into the air as if in an action movie, and in the next instant, it all ends? That's what happened on a busy highway outside Bangkok in 2019. A motorcyclist, speeding and without a helmet, lost control while trying to avoid a simple pothole in the road. What seemed like a minor scare turned into one of the most surreal accidents ever recorded in Thailand. The attempt to swerve sent him flying several meters into the air, as if time had stopped. But fate threw him directly against a metal sign at the side of the road. The impact was so precise and brutal that it shocked even experienced rescuers, leaving the scene impossible to describe without shuddering. A single mistake, and the road showed just how merciless it can be. Local authorities classified the case as one of the most extreme ever to occur in that region, and even with the frequency of accidents, few had seen anything so destructive. The images circulated rapidly, and the case became a morbid symbol of how thin the line is between euphoria and tragedy. But if this story seems like the height of absurdity, the next one goes beyond the imaginable. An accident so violent that entire networks doubted it could be real. How could something as mundane as dropping a motorcycle end in such a terrible way? That's the question that haunts the story that happened in Shenzhen, China in 2015. A motorcyclist was crossing the heavy traffic of a major avenue when he lost his balance and fell, right in front of a multi-ton cement mixer truck. A fraction of a second separated the shock from the inevitable. The truck driver tried to brake, but the colossal weight and inertia rendered any reaction futile. The vehicle ran over the motorcycle and the body, dragging everything for several meters before stopping. The result was so devastating that it shocked even the rescue team, who compared the scene to a crumpled piece of paper on the ground. And that's how the case got the nickname that spread through the news, the Paper Man. Reports describe how the body was so compressed that it couldn't even be placed in a coffin. A brutal, yet sadly ironic end for someone trying to avoid traffic jams. The tragedy cruelly exposed how, in traffic, there is no such thing as a small mistake. And if up to this point each story seems to be the epitome of absurdity, what follows takes everything to another level, a direct reflection on the price of haste and what freedom can truly cost. Most people believe that danger is always far away, hidden in the stories we hear about someone who knew someone. But the truth is that it all starts with a single thought, just this once, without the helmet, Just this once, pushing the limits. Just this once without thinking twice. And it's precisely this, confidence disguised as freedom, that transforms minutes of pleasure into one-way trips. These accidents are not just statistics lost in headlines. They are real portraits of thoughtless choices, of small oversights that cost everything. Each of these drivers believed they were living in the moment, but what they found was the silent price of haste. The road doesn't give second chances to those who believe they are invincible, and when it does, it exacts a high price. So, before you get on a motorcycle, accelerate a car, or ignore a safety rule, remember these stories. They aren't warnings designed to scare you, but reminders that life is much more fragile than we like to admit. Like, subscribe, and comment below what resonated with you the most, because in the end, every tragedy begins with a choice. And maybe this is the time to change yours.